I want to record this, you guys. So I'm sorry. I'm going to go back just a minute because I wasn't recording this already. So compensation information critical in the first part of an interview. You want to get this down. Most of the turn downs are a result of money expectations not being met, whether it's from the candidate side or the client side. So what we really have to do is get this information down right away so that we're able to understand how confident we should be. There's a lot of false hope that goes on and a lot of extra work that occurs when we don't know what a physician needs to earn in order to take a job, and we don't know what an employer is willing to offer. If those things are too far apart, we've got to try to intervene. Okay, so there's a few different strategies I wanted to talk about today that I think can help to suss out this information. But moving forward, I want to make sure that every interview that you guys are doing is something that is including questions about compensation. You've got a specific range or a number in there. I'll go ahead and give you the caveat that sometimes docs won't give you that. And that's okay. We don't need to beat them up about it, okay? Be too hard about it. But a lot of times, if we can get this information, it's going to be beneficial. So strategy number one, all right, this is how I phrase this, is I say, Doc, I know that money is always a factor. Maybe it's not the motivating factor, okay? But I know it's always something that's going to influence your decision. So what I'd like to understand is kind of what your expectations are in terms of that. Do you have a number where you say, I can't even consider this job unless I know I'm going to be able to earn X? Okay. And you see what they give you. They're going to give you a number at that point. Sometimes they won't, but usually they will. And I sent you an interview today where I asked that question, and that physician said, well, I need to make at least $400,000. Actually, I think what she said was like, well, I think I'd probably need to have at least $400,000. And so I said what I should have said at that point, right? Hindsight's always 20/20. Nobody's perfect, even me. You guys, pick your jaws up off the floor. All right, it didn't happen. But what I should have said at that point is, oh, okay. So is that total earnings or is that a base salary? Right? Because those are two different numbers. So she said, that's a base salary. So I said, okay, so $400,000. And again, hindsight being 20/20, the next question I should have said was, so if I happen to have a job that's close to Miami, which is what she wanted, that's where her family is, but they tell me they can only offer up to $375,000. You don't even want me to tell you about that job, right? And just wait to see what she says. All right. Almost every time I've done that, they've been like, well, and now you've got them. Now you've got them. Okay. So that's kind of strategy number one, is where you're getting this number. How much do you need to consider? Money's not necessarily the motivating factor, but it's always a factor. What do you need to have to consider a job? Okay. And is it total earnings or is it base salary? Next strategy number two, to get a little bit more granular on it, is getting two numbers. All right. First number is that nice to have number. Like, gosh, if they offer you this, it's going to be really hard to turn that down. Right. I mean, that'd be great. Second number is the minimum expectation. All right. Now, we already know sometimes they don't want to give you that, right? They're worried that you're going to go to an employer and say, hey, you can get a deal with this doc, right? You can get the bare minimum here. This is what they need, right? So you've got to reassure them, say, what I'd really like to know is kind of what your minimum expectation. And that's not a number I'll ever share with an employer. But the reason I want that information is because if I find out that they're preparing an offer and it's less than this amount, or you've told me no way, no how, you won't consider this offer for less, I'm going to intervene. I'm going to stop that offer from going out. because it's a waste of everyone's time to have an offer be sent. They're spending their time. They probably got lawyers drafting a contract. That's money for them. For this contract to go to you and you immediately reject it. That doesn't make any sense. So let's not do that, right? Let me protect you from that happening. So that's the reason that you need that number, right? So that hopefully gets them in their comfort zone. So now if you can get these two numbers, now you've got a range to work with instead of just, well, I've got to have at least this, right? So these are a couple of really important strategies that I think will allow you to get this information when you're conducting a physician interview that then will give you that much more confidence as you're pushing a candidate through the process. You know, interviewers are getting set up. That's when you're going to be able to go back to the physician and say, okay, so you want me to make sure that this employer in Bolivar, Missouri knows that if they can't offer you $400,000, this probably isn't going to work, right? These are the type of tough conversations and really pointed questions that are going to allow you to like separate what's real and what's not. Are you in the game or are you not? Okay. So these are things that are really important. Kind of switching gears here a little bit, the other side of this coin, you guys, is that there are a lot of things that are going to add value to a job that don't necessarily have a tangible dollar amount assigned to them. Okay. And so these are really important things for you to consider because these are opportunities for you to provide some influence, advocation, persuasion. Okay. So what are some of these things? These intangibles. Okay. Hey, Hannah. Oh,
Hey, sorry, it
okay.
was
That's okay.
housekeeper day today, so I took a stupid time to run out and get lunch because they were
No,
like
no
in the
worries.
house all day.
I sprung this meeting on everybody. I'm really glad you joined. I've got this recorded. The only problem I have is you're wearing a Kentucky sweatshirt, and there's an IU game today. So,
Well, Kentucky lost last night, if that cheers anybody up. So
no, doesn't help. I love that I have like someone that I can go back and forth with about basketball, Hannah. So, yeah, Kentucky is a very good team. I did see that they lost last night. That was somewhat surprising. Much more surprising was Tennessee
Tennessee
getting
getting
unbelievably destroyed by Florida. It was
just
a 30-point
embarrassed.
beatdown. I mean, it was just an embarrassment. Tennessee was the #1 team in the country. They're not
And
anymore.
and Kentucky just beat Florida last week, so make that whole SEC scenario make sense, you know?
Well, who knows? Who knows? So yeah, all I know is you guys are better than IU, and that's the last thing I want to talk about in terms of IU basketball. We'll see if we win tonight. I don't have a lot of hope. So back to where we were here. So there are, and Hannah, I'm recording this, so I'll be able to share this with everyone. So the other thing I was getting ready to talk about are kind of some intangibles when it comes to offers. Okay, there are some things where you can't assign a tangible dollar amount to, but they're still going to add value to the job. And these are things that you can use as leverage when you're talking to a physician about what's in their best interest to pursue, right? So one of the most clear examples that I can provide, I was actually talking with another one of our recruiters here, Mitch Wood, today. And I was talking with him about a doctor who he's got an offer from one of Mitch's jobs that's only about a 30-minute drive from where he lives. He's a hospitalist. Okay. So 30 minutes from where he lives in Idaho to get to this job in Blackfoot. All right. Doc says he's got another job that he could drive to that's like 3 hours away. Okay. And what we don't know is if that job's going to pay more, less, whatever, but he's got this other opportunity. Okay. So I'm talking with Mitch and I say, okay, so let's just pretend that this job is, let's say, offering him, what do you guys say, $25,000 more? Say 25K a year. Okay, you got 3 more hours in the car. All right. So let's do some quick math here, you guys. All right. So if it's 3 hours there, it's 3 hours back. All right. That's 6 hours in the car twice a month. Okay. So that's 12 hours a month. let's be conservative. And let's say this physician works 48 weeks a year. It's 52 weeks in a year, right? So 12 times 48, let's see how many hours this is. That's 576 hours, you guys. How many days is 567 or 576 hours? That is remarkably exactly 24 days. Okay. So I'm not going to say that $25,000 is an insignificant amount of money. I think we can all agree on that. But what I am going to say is, what is 24 days worth to you, doc? Right? Is that worth that extra $25,000? Maybe it is, maybe it's not. The biggest intangibles, other than like this type of example, are the personalities of the people that you're working with, right? The quality of the facilities. These are things that are non-negotiable items for the most part. And while they might not add a specific dollar amount, they're going to add value to the job. So when you're talking with physicians about their impressions about a job opportunity, what did they like about the visit? What did they think about the people that they met? What did they think about the facilities? All of these things are relevant because these can be data points that you can use to then try to provide a little bit of influence direction in terms of what they're doing. Okay, so the bottom line here is I just want to make sure that all of you are asking about their income expectations. You're noting what those are. So then you're going to be able to use that information when you're talking with potential employers about what they have to do to hire the doc. We don't want to let that go by the wayside and then be surprised when things fall apart because the money isn't a match. Okay. So I've been talking a whole bunch, and Terrence, Tom, Jordan, I appreciate your patience with me in particular because I think we had to redo about a minute and a half of this one. But either way, any questions, comments? I'd love to hear from you guys, even if it's not about comp stuff. What are you thinking about interview stuff? Do you feel like you're going to be able to get this information?
Yeah, I had kind of an interesting situation last night where a client asked me to be on the initial phone call with a doc that I submitted, just so I got to know the practice and some of the minutia and what they're looking for, really. And my doc is currently making $185,000 a year as an OBGYN in Katy, Texas, which is like nothing, right? And they're like, whoa, hold the phone. Like, how is that even possible? And she said, I took this job out of residency because I was basically getting private lessons on surgery and using the robot. And I had an experienced physician with me every step of the way whenever I wanted for the last 3 years. So it was like she took that job in low pay because she had that type of experience. Now she's obviously not looking for that and wants to like double up on her salary, but yeah, that's just like one example of why somebody might. I mean, that's insanely low, but nonetheless, that's what's happening.
Well, I mean, so that's a great example here, Jordan, and it's exciting because she clearly invested in her future. I mean, her skills are probably far superior to what someone else would be who maybe is making more money because she got that type of proctoring from a more experienced physician. So that's something that you can feel, and I know you are very much leaning into when it comes to your presentation of this candidate, right? So that's great. And it's like, that information likely came from, either it was you were learning about her experience and you asked, so like, are you making full-time pay? Or she's like, I'm only making this because this is what I'm doing and I'd really like to make more. So, again, the money piece here is so important to understand, right? We don't have to like push the candidates really hard about it, but if you can get the information, it's really going to be helpful for you so that you don't feel surprised at the end of the deal when they're like, oh, yeah, well, I can't take this job because they're offering me $60,000 less than I needed.
Yeah, I like what you've shared, Ian. I think like what I typically do is I kind of flip, and if they have time, I normally ask the candidate to kind of run through their situation and the reasons why they're looking, and then poke and prod on those reasons, and then utilize those reasons if needed to help ask for comp towards the end of the conversation. Same kind of concept. The phrase that I've used for a while and it's my go-to is, what do you need to earn to not affect your quality of life? You know, just something simple like that. Specifically for physician recruiting, when I have, even if I say that and someone's still a little hesitant, I need to understand, especially if they're open to rural and metro areas, or, you know, in different states, it's, hey, everywhere pays different. I'll explain, you know, what you shared on the pay differences from metro to rural. And I said, I need to understand a ballpark.
Right.
And that kind of baseline. And even if they can't give me a number, they often at that point in time will say, well, I'm currently earning this. I don't want to go below that.
Right.
Ian, you'll remember that I had the guy in Kentucky, first job out of school, and he's looking in Houston, you know, and he's like, oh, I'm in a rural place right now. It's like, sorry, he goes, I'm in a big metro now. And no, he's in a rural town, and he's on 250 grand. So it's like, cool. So at least you have like a baseline to start with and then chip away at. If you have a client and if the candidate's, you know, giving you feedback after every interview, for instance, I typically check in and say, hey, we talked about 300,000 when we first spoke. How does that look right now relative to what you've learned from going in and having, you know, the interviews? You know, is that still what you're looking for? Type thing.
Right. Yeah.
Is this our newest recruiter?
It definitely is. Yeah. I really like what you said, Terrence. She's a cutie.
Guys.
No, that's okay. She's I know she's excited to see Dad. She's real cutie. But yeah, Tom, what I really like is understanding that, you know, most people don't want to make a lateral move, right? They're going to expect to make at least what they're making right now, if not in excess of that. So that's another good way, you know, what do you need to make to not affect your quality of life, right? And then kind of an extension of that is, so because they might say 400K, 350K, right? I think you might want to follow that up with, so what are you making right now?
You can't ask that in certain states. So it's illegal to ask for comp in certain states, or at least maybe not illegal to ask, it's illegal to ask for proof of that, I guess. It's the proof thing that
I think it's
changed.
illegal
Right, well, we're
to
not really
withhold
asking
it
for-
in certain states too.
Yeah, I mean, we're not really asking for proof, I guess is what I would say, Tom. And I know we're also not the employers.
I like that. Yeah, no, I like that strategy,
like,
for sure.
If they're not willing to share, that's okay. But what I've found is that if I'm like, so, you know, what are you earning right now? I'm not asking for their base salary. I'm not asking for how the incentives are calculated, right? I'm asking for that. And you could even say it like this, like, hey, I know most people aren't looking to make a lateral move. And if you're looking to change positions, I have to assume you want to make, if not the exact same, at least slightly more than what you're making right now. So like, where are we with that? Like, what are you earning right now? So I know what my targets need to be to identify opportunities you're going to be excited about. Okay. So I think that's how we can approach that. And Tom, I do appreciate what you're saying here, but with us not being the employer, we have certain liberties in terms of the questions that we can ask that allow us to get a little bit more information. Right.
Yeah, I get
Sorry,
on that. Like, no, it's and you know, my reaction was, yeah, that was going back from when all the laws changed around, you know, back in the day when they would actually ask for proof of current earnings from my recruiting experience, and they would only ever give a plus minus 20% raise on what they were currently earning. Another tactic I've used here, especially in physician recruiting, is if they either won't say or they don't know, or to bridge into that, especially if it's a candidate who's looking pretty wide, I will ask, do you have a salary that you're looking for, or are you open to the compensation that's offered based on the employer and location? And when I've
Right.
asked that question, a lot of them have been, especially like residents, they've kind of been, yep, I'm open to whatever they're, willing to pay. They'll often give me like a minimum too, but something else at
And I
least.
think it's good. I don't have a problem if they won't give you a number. That's not an issue. If they won't give you a number, it's almost somewhat encouraging to me, because I feel like now they're going to be willing to kind of evaluate the job as a whole versus maybe dictate their interest based on this initial salary offering or total compensation. So if they do go that route where they're like, well, I'm not really sure, it would depend on the job, my responsibilities, am I taking call, am I doing procedures, whatever it is for the specialty, that's when you should work to identify what are the other factors, right, that are going to influence their decision. Okay, so money's not the motivating factor. Clearly, it's going to be something that you've got to consider, but what are the other things that need to be in play to make sure that this is a job that you're going to be excited about? Because that's really what I want to try to find for you, right? So just really focusing, again, the money is just super important. Sometimes you're going to get it, sometimes you're not. But I think putting them in their comfort zone about how you approach them about this, where they know that you're advocating for them, you're not trying to go out to employers and kind of lowball to make them feel like they can get this physician at less than what they feel like they deserve, right? And certainly, based on their experience, the work that they've done, their track record of success, there are many physicians that can display, hey, there's no way you should pay me less than this, right? There are sometimes, you guys, especially with surgical specialties, where a doc might have a high expectation, okay? And one of the things you might want to ask them in that case is, so do you have like case logs or like W-2s that are going to like back this up? And just see what they say. Because if a hospital is going to give them, let's just hypothetically say $150,000 more in an income guarantee, okay, but that physician has never produced anything close to that amount, they're not going to do it. But if that doc can show, hey, here are my case logs, this is how many procedures I did, I averaged this many RVUs, that's well in excess of that amount, now the employer all of a sudden is like, oh, okay, we can probably do that. That's a lot less risk for us because they've done it before. Okay, cool. Well, we're approaching about 30 minutes here, so I don't want to hold everybody much longer than that. Any questions, comments? Hopefully this was like a little helpful for you guys. I covered some stuff here that you can implement.
No, it's great. Appreciate it.
Yeah, good. Okay.
Yeah, it was
Anybody
good.
doing anything?
I was going to
thanks,
ask
Tom.
if Terrence and Hannah, do you all have like any specific ways do you have like your go-to of how you get comp?
I haven't had any problems getting comp yet with the doctors I've connected with.
Good.
I don't have any specific word tracks. I do a lot of, conversationally, where if it's in the interview, I'll just figure out a way to ask it. I really haven't had much pushback. The closest I've had is where a doctor's asked basically where we came into the process and how we got paid. And I basically had to say that was on the client side. We aren't really affecting what the job's pay is at all, and things like that. That's the only weird thing I've had around comp. I feel like I've had good luck with doctors giving me what they expect on that side.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, same. I mean, usually when I ask, they just tell me. I mean, I've had people I feel like that are unrealistic, and then we have to talk about, their expectations. But for the most part, I mean, you ask somebody how much money they want to make, they know it's relevant.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Well, just thought it was worth chatting a little bit about this. When it comes to the overall interview process, like, let's keep getting this dialed in. I'd appreciate to hear from all of you if there are any aspects of that where you're like, I think I'd like to be able to get more information about this, and it's something that doesn't really seem to be happening. And, you know, I'm going to say, take all of this with a big grain of salt, because I know that the ability to get people to provide this information varies greatly, right? And so you can only get what you can get. But I feel like the more strategies you have, systems, processes you have to get this info, the more likely it is you're going to get it and then be able to take more confident action once you've got it. So anyways, well, that's all I got for you. I really appreciate all 4 of you jumping in on this meeting, chatting with me, sharing some information here. So I'll let you get back to it, and have a great rest of your afternoon and evening. Go IU.
Who are you?
Who are they?
See you guys. What's that,
Bye.
Terrence?
Oh, I got you over there. I said who. He said, who are they?
Who? Cheers!